In this model that we've built, it's going to enable Orion to move into a different world because we're going more B2B now. So they're going in the employee benefits world with just the simple thing
Perfect.
is we want to protect more Canadians. So how do we do that?
Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com, episode 75. Who do we have?
Robin Kroll.
Maria Rubio.
Alison Hammill.
Michael Turksani. Alison, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I know. We're in the studio. This is like our second or third one that we've done in person. It's a little bit nerve-wracking when you're sitting in front of three cameras and microphones, but it's just us. We're all friendly. But it's a whole lot better than doing it over Zoom.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad you came, because if we were doing this over Zoom, it kind of would have been bummed out. You know?
Yeah, it's a big adventure. Haven't been out much lately.
I know, you're coming down, you're trekking down. Robin brought Tim Hortons.
That's right.
Muffins.
Veal coffee today.
Right? Remember when we weren't sure if you could give somebody a coffee because that might give you COVID, but it turns out that's okay. So that's really good.
Absolutely. Do you hug? Do you shake hands?
Yeah.
What do you do when you greet people? It's really weird.
Full disclosure, I hugged Allison. So.
Oh, you did? I was going to too, but I wasn't sure because I never
asked.
know, right? Yeah, okay. Good. Well, that's awesome. So, we're here. We're almost in the summer, 2022. Not to date the podcast. We don't like doing it because we want evergreen content.
Okay.
But unfortunately,
You've just dated
I've
it.
dated
but
it.
that's okay.
So one. No, just kidding. But we are going to talk about kind of the journey through COVID that you've been on. But for now, let's get maybe a little intro, Alison, and learn about yourself and the brand that you represent.
Sure. I work for CAA as a larger club, and the brand that I represent is Orion Travel Insurance. We've been around for about 10 years.
Okay.
And CAA at a larger level decided that they wanted to take more control to protect their travelers. So they created Orion, and we create travel insurance for all the clubs across Canada. And so we offer travel medical insurance, and over the last couple of years, we've also been moving into more of a B2B market and working with employee benefits. So it's a great opportunity for us. And especially in travel insurance, companies are looking for more of a Canadian brand.
Yeah.
And absolutely, our partners, everything that we do is in Canada. And CAA is one of the most the most trusted brand in Canada.
Yeah, that's
Amazing.
right. And just a little bit about travel insurance generally, because I remember when we started, this is going back a little bit even before this 2019 kind of journey that you've been on with marketing automation. But I remember when we first met, I think you might have came up with me, Robin, right? CAA, and you'd popped in on something around transactional email project. Remember that a long time ago?
Absolutely.
And I learned a lot about travel insurance then and the importance of it. But why don't you talk a little bit about what you guys really are doing for the end consumer?
That was a really fun conversation. So with Orion's responsibility, what we really look to do is we want to make sure that all of our distribution partners have the information that they need to support the travelers. So travelers are going into the CAA store. They're also going online. So what kind of information can we share? And during COVID, it was crazy. Everything was changing so fast. So the information we had to share with clubs just came out so fast, and everything was changing. And what we had been doing, we were dealing with a PDF document using emails, and sometimes somebody was forgotten. And where was that PDF? And then you have to go into storing the PDFs and updating and changing, and everything was absolutely crazy to manage it.
And I think for those of you that haven't maybe gone into a CAA store, or is it called stores?
Yep.
Yeah, CAA store, right? So to book your travel, because that's what you can do, and a lot of people do, and I did, and we do. I remember when we first started to go to Disney World, it was kind of one of those things where there's a little sketchy, what are we doing? We don't know how to do it. So we went there, and it was awesome because, all the benefits that you get working with somebody to help you plan that out. But then also I remember they had this, I don't know if you still do this, but there's a parking pass. And there was a special parking pass that was from CAA that basically got you to the front, more or less the front of the parking lot for a standard, like whatever you would pay to get into the park, and you'd show that pass and you got to go drive right to the front of the lot.
I have no idea, but I know that the Disney team, they're insane. They know these parks inside and out. They live, breathe the Disney experience, and they know all the tricks and navigate these through really well. It's crazy.
So yeah, get your travel insurance. I know that one of our people, Mark Finnegan, which you may have heard that name, but he's been here with us for a long time. He was only with us for, I think, a few months. It was like right after his benefits kicked in, and he went down for his honeymoon, or I think it might have been his wedding as well, to somewhere in Mexico, and he like cut his foot really bad.
Yeah.
Had a huge accident, and thankfully, like, our benefits covered all of the stuff that he needed done. It was a pretty big deal. But yeah, I think this is great. You should have travel insurance. So there you go.
It's one of those benefits that you don't really appreciate until you have to use
a problem,
it.
Yeah. And it's not just that. I know it's a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So marketing automation. So what? Maybe we just rewind because we were talking before we got on about the timeline. Around we started talking, I think in around 2019, you said.
Yep.
Getting organized, thinking how could this work. So I mean, I want to kind of go through the last couple of years with it. So what started it off? What were you kind of doing before then to communicate with your audiences, your constituents? Maybe talk a little bit about that, and then why we thought about doing the automation side.
Okay. Orion has a really great brand, and it's beautiful with the all of the assets. And so we had created a newsletter. And it goes out bi-monthly, and it's kind of like a bi-monthly, here's everything you need to know about the industry. So we were having like fun FAQs, we'd have industry information to share with our partners so that they had the awareness. And so we had created this beautiful, again, PDF, and it was page after page, and changes were difficult to make. And also what was happening is we had nowhere to store it.
Sure.
So you'd send it, again, you'd probably miss people because it was copy and paste last month's distribution list. So I was maintaining it that way, and people were getting missed, and it was a lot of work to just send the email. So the digital journey we wanted to take, and the question that we asked is, how can we create a journey while still maintaining all of this information, but also create a place for them to be able to go back and reference.
Right.
So we took the newsletter and kind of had the ability with this with the digital journey to bring it up a notch. So not only did we create the newsletter, we also created a hub, a marketing hub.
Yeah, and just so that everyone knows, like when you're saying newsletter, like it's almost sounds like really like a basic newsletter that you might get, which it really wasn't. Like you're talking about a pretty involved PDF that's very
magazine almost.
Almost
it
like
exactly.
That would be a better a better
it's like a coffee table book.
Yeah. Right.
And there's so
but
many
it's our
elements.
newsletter, quote unquote. So somebody might be hearing this being like, yeah, it's just newsletter. What do you mean? Like that's straightforward. No. This is like a magazine. That's a better
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a magazine.
Or a coffee table book, to your point. Yeah, it's serious.
And
right?
it was beautiful.
Yeah.
With so much information.
Yeah, and I because I was involved at the beginning of the process, and so it's kind of like we knew where we were, we knew where we wanted to get and what we wanted to maintain from the creative perspective, and there was that whole middle part saying, well, we need to really break apart, like what are the challenges that we're experiencing, because I think some of them there was getting that beautiful end product in a way that you could update the content. We also talked about things like approvals and workflows, because we actually, and we didn't mention this initially, but we kicked this off with a roadmap where we we went through, because there was a lot of things to break down, to understand what were the challenges that we were trying to overcome, so that we could go ahead and build a solution which was really custom for Orion, because what we ended up doing was definitely not how we typically utilize marketing automation platforms for our clients.
Yeah, and I think that that's absolutely what happened, because when we started, it was just to share the newsletter. Mm-hmm. But then we took a step back, and this roadmap that we were able to create is we brought in all of the different communications that we did, and how can we leverage those communications and make it work in the system. And that's how we came up with this incredible journey that we now have that incorporates all of the communications.
Right.
It's not a microsite, but what we've done is we've taken all of the landing pages and made it available at all times.
Okay, so let's describe what it is so that we know kind of like the end result, and then we'll circle back to some of the other stuff. But actually, I just want to touch on the roadmap process because it's a really good point. I think even for, I remember when you guys were originally talking about this process, the roadmap came up as like, we should do that because the last thing we need to be doing is buying a piece of technology and then, not having it aligned to any sort of immediate objective or win or something that you can point back to. And then, we know that happens, right? These systems somehow, like we talk to clients and they'll have the system for a year and a half and it's just kind of been sitting there. Somebody signed the order form and it's just kind of been sitting there, right? So I think the roadmap was a really big win for you.
It was absolutely. And working with the team to pause for a moment. Yes, we understand you came to us with this is what I want. But when we took that step back to explore and look at all those opportunities was incredible.
Yeah.
Because the project continued to grow, but it was very purposeful. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the roadmap was really helpful in what we created and what we're using today.
Great. So why don't you guys maybe just describe a little bit, Alison, and then you guys can jump in as well. What does it look like? What have you got at this stage in the game? You said it's not a microsite, but kind of maybe explain a little bit about what it is that you've got put in place.
So it's kind of almost I look at it as two different products. So we have, let's just go with our standard communication. So we have a bi-monthly newsletter. Mm-hmm. We also have a monthly kind of bulletin that goes out that was actually inspired by the road mapping.
Okay.
And then what we have is we've consolidated all of the landing pages in a hub. So we've got navigation and it's categorized. And so when you get the newsletter, you see all these articles, but you can also easily go back to see the last month's, but you can also see a bulletin that I sent 6 months ago. So in this ever-changing industry of travel and travel insurance, you also have this repository of all of our communications.
Interesting. And this is, so maybe just touch on the audience that would benefit from something like that.
That's the even cooler part. Because right now is we have our audiences are marketing teams mm-hmm. and product owners of our distribution partners. Mm-hmm. So they can go back and look at all this, but the benefit is that they can take our landing pages and put it on their own learning pages. So each partner has their own intranet. And so with the landing page, it's kind of like our property, but they take that landing page and put it on their learning system.
Right.
And I'm not having to send 50 PDFs if there's
and
an
they don't
update.
And they don't have to add the 50 PDFs to their system every month or a bulletin that comes out or whatever, right?
And we called it a little like it was a carrier pigeon style distribution where now we just please share us your email and the system just sends everything, and then everyone who's supposed to get the communication is always on the list, which has been a massive benefit to us because we're not missing people.
And they can just add themselves to the list.
They add themselves, and so we have the double benefit is that with these landing pages that we created, is that it sits in our hub so anyone can access it, but then our partners are taking this landing page and putting it on their internal learning systems.
Wow. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I think maybe just to touch on, to expand on it, the branding, because if anybody has seen CAA or Orion branding, it's mm-hmm. beautiful, just as you were saying. So I think it was pretty interesting to kind of creating this hub because a big part of the process was actually deliver the information was the key, mm-hmm. but the branding, how everything looked, the flow of everything was very important from the moment we started working on this. So I think there was a lot, it was months just creating this, and the final result's beautiful. But it was very interesting to work with a client that's so involved into their own brand and really wants to deliver that to the client, that everything was we want this color, this is the size, and there was a lot of testing, so it was pretty special
Yeah.
and very customized to what Orion wanted.
And maybe counterintuitive, counterintuitive or not obvious, I think, even to many people, because we see so many bad landing pages or poorly designed layouts that are on automation, right? So you think, can these systems even handle something like that? Like, do we have to build a to your point, a microsite in order to get the level of, brand experience that we want, or can we make this happen on the system? And clearly that was something that you were able to do, is make it happen on the automation platform.
Yeah, and it worked out really well, because where I was going as well is that, so Orion works with CA clubs across Canada. Mm-hmm. We're also taking that opportunity, and we're kind of shifting and looking at working with more employee benefits groups. So companies and their benefits while they're away. And so what we're able to do is replicate this system that is kind of customized for CAA partners and move it over to our more B2B broker audience.
Right.
And very seamlessly.
Because it's the same consumption content use case, right?
Right.
It's basically the same flow that they would use.
Right.
Right.
It's such an interesting use of the landing pages, because I think of, in a much more typical situation, if it's B2B or even B2C, it's sending an audience for a fairly specific one-time purpose, or one sort of one strategy purpose, to a platform where you're going to share some content, capture some information. But this is, and Alison, we talk about, that this concept of you had nowhere to put the content. So how the landing page was actually this great place to put the content and be able to leverage it for multiple purposes from multiple audiences. And we did talk about this, the importance of content, which we hear from our clients all the time, and people are always talking about the importance of content. It's even more critical today to have the right content, the right format that aligns with your audience. And then I just think of within the travel industry, that content and the ever-changing need of the content. So that again is that use of that landing page, where it's really easy to change and update, but maintain, Maria, as you said, that beautiful branding, which is so critical for Orion as well.
Exactly. And I think with that, the benefit that we also saw throughout this entire journey is the ability to track and measure what content is being consumed. It's allowed us to understand the difference between what our partners say they want
and what they're actually using.
What they're actually consuming.
Yeah.
And we have a monthly communication that goes out, and we've made updates almost every 3 months on how the information's being consumed. But what that allows the team to do is really focus on the content that is being consumed versus, we think this is awesome, we think they need this. But then it turns out that no one's using it.
Right.
So we're able to refocus our time just simply by measuring it.
Yeah, measuring the engagement of the audience against the content, against the communications that are going out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which you definitely can't do when you're sending out, a PDF. There's no way.
We had no insight. And while we all take this information and we take the data, we do our jobs, we understand what our audience wants, but being able to really see what they're consuming has been really valuable to our team.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe we'll rewind a bit and talk about kind of the C word, the COVID word.
Oh, yes.
Because, what was interesting, and I don't know that it changed your strategy, but maybe you can talk a little bit about how it affected, because I think where you ended up was probably pretty close to where you wanted to be, but maybe you could talk about 2019 to 2021 sort of really humming. What was going on there between that period?
It was interesting. There was a lot of learning. Is where everything was changing so fast. We'd create a communication, and the next day we would have to change it.
And this is on the automation system, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're already kind of using it, starting to dip toes in it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get the communications out fast enough. And by the time you had an approval on something, it changed. So if it was a government regulation, anything, your communication was changing.
Right.
So when we were using the carrier pigeon system of not without having it automated, who needs to see this? Did I remember to get this authorization and permission to send it out? What that really identified, and that sped up the process in launching and moving everything to be automated, because we could go into the landing page and make an update there and just write updated versus taking the time to save your PDF again, redesign it, and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think also,
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it was also very valuable because since the hub was already out, we could always put like those updated stuff, just update the link, and even if the person didn't see the email or anything, they can always refer back to the hub that they already have access to, and they will have like the updated information there. So it's always very helpful for them. Like everywhere they go, they can get like the latest.
Yeah, it gets it out of
thing.
email, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even though that might be the trigger point to still do some level of alerting, you can go there and you can see the history and the most latest update. So just so that people know, when you're talking about rules changing, like you guys are required to send this information out, correct? Like there's a level of you need to get this information out to people.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So this isn't a nice to have. This isn't a marketing thing like, hey, don't go to this spot and we're trying to sell you something. This is like, right, critical comms kind of stuff.
Absolutely. We're the insurance company.
Right.
We're the underwriter. And it's our responsibility to work with our partners that are selling the product to keep them up to date. They're all licensed, but it's to provide that information and the clarity.
100%.
Navigating through the craziness that was COVID.
So it sounds like the automation solution, even though it was still pretty much in its infancy for you guys at that point, was supporting that speed and agility and that maybe you always hoped you would have, but then you kind of really needed it.
Absolutely.
At that time. Yeah, that's great. It's kind of like you mentioned, Robin, a lot of people view these systems as the one-off campaign system, right? I think when we get it into a communication strategy, and when the organization is looking to leverage the platform for their overall communications, some of it which might be driving campaigns, etc. We really see these evolutions, these ideas come out, right? Whether it's like the stuff that you guys have brought to the table. We've done a lot of obviously critical bulletins and critical comms for insurance companies and brokers, but I just think a lot of people see these systems as limited to, it's just a lead gen campaign and that's all I can use it for. And if the campaign is kind of doing whatever it's doing or not doing what it's doing, then the system's just a throwaway. Whereas I think you kind of have been some exposure now to what else it can do for a business, right?
And we don't use it for lead gen at all.
Right.
It's the furthest
you're the opposite,
thing.
yeah.
It's such a powerful tool. We've also noticed the efficiency and the time it saves small teams and big teams. We don't have a big team. We're 2.5 people. Mm-hmm. So you don't require a massive team to execute this.
For sure.
And it's created so much more efficiency within our team and with our partners from an approval perspective. It's automated. So the test goes out, everyone gets it. It's a 10-minute exercise where previously it was a 4 to 5 hour process to package everything to get it to the groups.
Sure. Yeah. And you do work with us,
yes.
Right? So there's you've a small team and but not a huge contract with us. Like we augment your support of the system, right?
Absolutely.
So there is a little bit of maybe talk a bit about that as a newcomer to the automation system, and maybe how that's been helpful to make sure you guys are moving down the right road on a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, it's been really good. The team that we work with quite frequently, like I know we meet bi-weekly or once or twice a month.
Once a month, yeah.
Yeah, and the support helping navigate where we have a crazy idea, navigating and bringing that into perspective. Mm-hmm. And again, road mapping, this is what you want to do. The solutions are really, they come back to us really quickly in that this is the idea, this is how we can see it working. So it's been incredible. The digital, technical, and design support helps us get through that.
And not to pump, the tires, but it was more thinking about people that might be, considering moving into a platform like you guys have done, and we kind of made the plug around the roadmap as a good thing to do, right? Don't just go in with an idea and a piece of technology. But then also if you haven't done it before, it might be a good idea to have an agency supporting that leveraging that implementation and ongoing maintenance.
Exactly. From support, but also teaching.
Yeah. Strategy.
The strategy, how to use the system. I didn't even know what a landing page was. I didn't know the difference between the email and the landing page, and not pumping tires, but having that understanding and learning it allows me to articulate what we're trying to do, and working with a partner supports that in getting you get the best out of the system when you have support in being able to move forward with it.
And, Alison, from our perspective, that, we do work with these platforms, every day, but then we come to a strategy or a client need that's a little bit outside the box. And I know for our team, they love that, because it's like, oh, now we get to be creative. We get to really push these platforms. And so we learn a lot, and it means that we also can expand the value we can deliver, not only to Orion, but some of our other clients, because guess what? We've just found another huge value add for our marketing automation platform.
Yeah, another way to use it or how to adapt it to a business need, right? So we've talked about kind of what you're doing today. I'm sure you've got some ideas on where you might be going with the system, or do you guys feel like you're kind of tapped out where you can see it going for you?
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay.
We're all about ideas.
Yeah. Good.
Really, I think that we'll be using the system a lot more in that B2B and the lead gen
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to say.
acquisition
Yeah, you mentioned
as
that earlier.
we move forward with the employee benefits and more of that B2B market, outside of the work that we do with the CAA club groups. So that's where we're really excited. Using landing pages for post-conference events, building a B2B database as well.
Sure.
In that acquisition and contacts. So we're really excited.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it's a system that lets you deploy communications in a number of different ways to an audience that you can then measure engagement against, right? So that audience can be, and if you're a huge B2C audiences, there are different kind of systems that might come into play. But for the most part, that's really what it is. You define an audience and you say, well, now this is more of a business to business type of situation. But how, as a business unit, how are we measuring the success of our marketing communications? Like you said earlier, we really do want to become more known to these brokers, for example, and so how do we do that? And how can we tell if they seem to be consuming our content? And do we have the right people on our list? So it kind of, when we even look at our own marketing, you just chop it up into these different audience profiles, and then you just say, well, what is our goal with this particular audience? Like, what do we want to know about them? But it ultimately boils down to engagement, and are they engaging with our marketing? So these systems let you kind of better understand that, right?
Yeah.
So, what else?
I know Alison had like a whole list of things. There were some other things that you had talked about.
I think
What's
one
next
of the
up?
projects was the questions landing page that we were talking
Yes.
about, because it's going to be very personalized in the sense of the regions, which is something different from what we've done already with the hub. That is more this is all the content that you guys need, but this is depending on where you are, things might be
an
different.
Alberta one versus
Yeah.
So yeah, what's that going to look like?
So exactly. So we customize content by partner. Mm-hmm. So we have a general audience,
which are kind of regional-ish.
Yeah, exactly. So they're regional, and we also do languages. So we do
Okay.
English and French as well.
Okay.
So what we learned, the smart FAQs, the FAQs is a really interesting journey, because it was kind of also inspired by the road mapping and understanding the platform. Mm-hmm. Is that when you have an event like COVID or an urgent bulletin or something has changed, we created a database-ish of questions that would be super helpful in when something happens. So if you rewind, COVID happens, what do people need to know? So we were able to scan all of our questions and the bulletins and communications, and so we're creating this. It's the accordion, right? On the smart
accordion
FAQs.
menu,
And we're just creating landing pages with using the accordions, where you can allows us to put more content on one page by using the accordions.
And then cinch it up.
Cinch it up. So you still get to send everything you need to, but the accordions really help condense it and not make it look as overwhelming.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. Personalizing per region and then the languages. Those are all things that, really become pretty challenging if you don't have a technology to support it underneath. Anything else that you guys think you want to bring up? I mean, that was pretty.
There's a lot. I think we've got like.
I mean, it's always good
lots
when
of great
somebody
ideas.
comes on and says, "Yeah, when they say we're taking the system out because we don't like it. And it's not adding value.
It's not working.
Those
for
podcasts
us.
we don't like to publish when those ones happen. That's why I'm always glad to hear that. No, I'm just kidding. That never happens. But no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, well, things are changing, right? In the industry right now, how tracking occurs in particular, and I think that a little bit different in the B2B world. We'll have a bit more options there, but I think there will be an evolution to your point. Every year, maybe this is something to think about going into the new year, is really kind of retake stock. What do we have on feature sets? What do we have on some of these big changes in how digital marketing is going to be tracked and how we can do targeting, et cetera, and always have like some level of annual roadmap for your for the automation platform, the automation solution. But I can't think of anything like off the top of my head that would, really change what you're doing. I think if anything, it would just be able to enhance what you already have as a pretty great solution.
Yeah, more relevant, not more relevant, but more targeted, so that the relevance really stands out to your audience. That's going to increase your engagement, as well as the tracking. Making sure that this content is actually landing. It's driving value, because that's, in the end, whether you're talking to a B2B or a B2C consumer, that's what people want. They want to have content that's relevant and fills a need for them, and that's when they're going to engage with your brand.
Yeah. And that is super timely. You want to make sure that it's the relevant at the right time, at the right moment.
The right time, exactly.
That you didn't miss the boat and send it 10 days later, because you're still getting approvals on a PDF.
Right. And in your situation, it could be that they're missing the literal boat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be scary. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there then. What are we at for time, Cam?
33 minutes.
33. So we did pretty good. Yeah. We did really good. All right. First time around. And this is your second time, Maria?
First time.
This is your first time?
This is the first time. I know it's been a long time.
Over 3 years.
But COVID happened.
Oh, but COVID.
And then I was more in COVID than out of COVID.
Sure.
At Goose, so this is the first. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna have to do another one then. All right, Alison, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Thanks, Alison.
Thanks,
It's great.
All right.
Bye, everyone.